Hello, grade 12 students. I hope you guys are fine today. And our topic for today is genetics and inheritance. Genetics and inheritance. So, we are going to speak about genetics and inheritance. And we can't speak about genetic and inheritance without mentioning Mendel, the father of genetics, Mendel. So, Gregor Mendel was an Austrian priest who lived in a monastery. And as he was living actually in a quiet environment, of a monastery, he was able to carry out experiments to study variation in plants. So he had a garden, a large garden, and there he studied 30, almost 30,000 pea plants over 10 years. He was just busy studying the pea plants over 10 years. So his careful study of inheritance in pea plants was completed only in 1863. So this study led to one of the great discoveries of science, the basic laws of genetics. So he chose pea plants because they were easy to cultivate, number one. They had a short generation time, and also because of the contrasting characteristics, That's why he chose pea plants. So contrasting characteristics such as shapes, colors, and sizes are different in pea plants. So that was really interesting. That was suitable for what he was supposed to study. So these pea plants normally self-pollinate, but could also be cross-pollinated. So he chose 22 varieties of pea plants to do his study. Very, very important. So that's just an introduction with regards to Mendel. Let's go straight to the topic. Let us speak about genes. It's really important to understand the concept of genes. What is a gene? Gene is a segment of DNA responsible for one characteristic, or you can also say gene is a part of DNA that is responsible for the synthesis of a protein. Part of DNA that is responsible for the synthesis of one protein. That's another definition of gene. So we can't talk about genetics without mentioning genes. What about alleles? What are alleles? What are alleles? Allele is one or two or even more forms of a gene or group of genes. That's what an allele is. It's an alternative form of the same gene. When we say allele, we are talking about alternative form of the same gene. In simple terms, that's what an allele is. Alternative form of a gene. Right? Normally, a gene has got two alleles, but it can have more. That's why here in the definition we are saying allele is one or two or even more forms of a gene or even a group of genes. Alright? That's the definition. But you can also add that each gene, each allele is located on a specific position on a specific chromosome. So you say chromosome, there are different positions. We call it locus, L-O-C-U-S. That's singular. L-O-C-I is plural. Loci or loci. So we call it that position, that location where you can find a gene. It's called locus. So when you say that genes are located, genes are made they've got alternative forms. So those alternative forms are called alleles. So alleles are actually genes, okay? Alternative forms of the same gene, right? Alternative form of the same gene. For example, there's a gene for the eye, the color of your eye, right? Eye color, okay? Color of your eye color. There's a gene that gives you brown eyes, another gene that gives you blue eyes. So the same gene with two alternative forms. One for brown eye, another one for blue eye. So alleles, okay? So alleles can be dominant or recessive. They can be dominant or recessive. So a dominant allele codes for a dominant characteristic. All right? Very important. So now let us use that example I was actually giving you now. Right? Let us analyze this characteristic, the color of your eyes. Okay? The color of your eyes. Most people have got brown eyes because it's a dominant allele. So brown eye is a dominant allele, right? And people with blue eyes have got a recessive allele. But the recessive allele is masked by the dominant allele. In this case, blue, right? Color blue, color of your eyes, is dominant. Okay, so it masks the presence of the recessive gene. Therefore, the recessive gene is not part of the outward appearance, right? So when you say outward appearance, is what we see when we look at you. Are your eyes blue or brown? So that is the outward appearance. And the name we give to the outward appearance is phenotype. Okay? The name we give to the outward appearance is phenotype. Don't forget that. So, in terms of alleles, we can have we call it genotype. We can have homozygous alleles and heterozygous alleles. Individuals can be heterozygous or homozygous. Individuals can be heterozygous or homozygous. So homozygous can be homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive. Okay, homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive. So homozygous individuals have got one form of the same gene, just one type of allele. Okay, you understand it later. So just bear in mind that a heterozygous individual, an individual with an heterozygous characteristic, or an individual that is heterozygous for a specific characteristic, right? An individual that is heterozygous for a specific characteristic carries a dominant and a recessive allele. Talking of two, right? Two alternative forms of the same gene, allele. So one allele is dominant and another allele is recessive, right? Just reminding you that hetero means different and homo means equal, all right? So individuals that are homozygous for a specific characteristic, they carry either two dominant alleles or two, right? Recessive alleles for the same trait or characteristic. All right. Now, how do we write it? All right. How do we write it? You have to know how to write that, nah? So, dominant versus recessive, brown and blue eyes. So we're still talking of brown and blue eyes. So we said that brown eyes are dominant over blue eyes. Okay, so we write it with a capital letter. Okay, capital letter. There's a mistake here that must be changed. Let me zoom out. All right. So we can change it, otherwise you're going to get confused, right? You're going to get confused, so you have to change this. So what we are saying, right, is that brown eye, okay, brown eyes, we write with the capital letter B in this case. B for brown and blue, right? So B uppercase is dominant, so capital letter, and blue lowercase small letter is for blue eyes. Okay, so B lowercase blue eyes, right guys? Blue eyes. Okay, so we are saying that we've got two alleles here. One allele is dominant, so uppercase, capital letter, and another allele is recessive. So how do you write that? Is with a small letter, lowercase, blue eyes. So it means that an individual that is homozygous dominant will have two alleles for brown eyes. You can see here two alleles for brown eyes. So we say that this individual is homozygous dominant. Okay, homozygous what? Dominant, right? Don't forget that. You can even write that. Homozygous dominant. Let us write it so you don't forget that. Homozygous dominant. You know, homozygous dominant, right? And here homozygous recessive. Okay, so we call it genotype. You see this BB with two capital letters, né? We say it is a homozygous dominant. This individual is homozygous dominant for what characteristic? For brown eyes, because here we are studying only one trait, one characteristic. All right, one characteristic that is being studied here. Okay, and also we have to understand that sometimes the individual can have one allele for brown eyes and another allele for blue eyes. So now we say that that individual is heterozygous because that individual carries the allele for brown eyes and also carries the allele for blue eyes. So he or she will have what? Brown eyes. Why? Because the dominant characteristic is present. What is the dominant characteristic? It's brown eyes. So this individual has got one allele that is dominant. So that one allele that is dominant, brown eyes, is going to mask the recessive allele. Okay? It's going to mask the recessive allele. So summarizing, uppercase is for brown eyes, lowercase b is for blue eyes. You see BB uppercase is for homozygous dominant. Therefore the individual phenotypic characteristic of phenotype is brown eyes, and one B uppercase and another B lowercase, that individual is heterozygous. Therefore he or she carries the allele for because he or she carries the allele for brown eyes and blue eyes, and there is a dominant allele, in this case is the brown eye allele. Therefore the individual is going to have brown eyes. But the recessive allele can only manifest on the phenotype when both of the alleles are recessive. Okay, for blue eyes. Both of them must be recessive, right? Because the recessive allele is always masked by the dominant allele. So the only way the recessive allele can manifest on the phenotype, can be seen on the phenotype, can be part of the outward appearance of that individual is simply by the absence of the dominant allele. So the only way it can manifest itself is by the absence of the dominant allele. Right? Imagine in a group of 5 people, there is always the alpha individual. You know, there are the alpha individuals and the beta individuals. So alpha individuals are the dominant individuals. So in a group of 5 people, there is one individual that is the alpha. So as long as the alpha individual is in the group, he is going to be the leader. But as soon as the alpha individual disappears, that's when one of those beta individuals, right, they don't have the leadership skills, right, to lead the group. One of them that is better than the rest there is going to take over the leadership because the alpha individual is not there. It is the same thing that is taking place here. The absence of the dominant allele, okay, is the gateway for the manifestation of the recessive gene. Okay, I hope you guys understood that. All right, for example, here we have, you know, individuals A and B have brown eyes. You know, you have the key there, blue for allele for blue eyes, and the yellow bar for allele for brown eyes. You see that horizontal bar. The blue one is allele for blue eyes, which is a recessive characteristic, and below that blue bar there's a brown one there, which is the allele for brown eyes. So that's dominant. So far left you see individual A, and you can see that the first chromosome there, you know, has got a gene, which in this case is an allele for blue eyes, and the other part of the chromosome has got, right, an allele for brown eyes. So this individual is heterozygous. One of the allele is coming from the maternal side, and the other allele is coming from the paternal side. You see 2 chromosomes. One is a maternal chromosome, another one is a paternal chromosome. In the middle, this individual B is homozygous dominant. It has got 2 alleles of the same type, of the same form, right? So it is a homozygous dominant individual. It's got 2 alleles for brown eyes. And individual C is homozygous recessive. It has got 2 alleles for blue eyes. Okay, that's it. Now, inheritance and variation. We are going to speak about monohybrid crosses. Monohybrid crosses. Monohybrid crosses. Okay, let us say, for example, that we have got, in this case, a parent that is homozygous dominant for both what is the characteristic that is being studied here? The characteristic that is being studied here is height. So let us say one of the parents is homozygous dominant for tallness. Okay, homozygous dominant for tallness or height. Okay, so how do you write that? The genotype is written as TT. Okay, both these are capital letters. Okay, uppercase. Okay, and the other one, right down here below, okay, you have the first one, then the middle one, then the third one below, is homozygous recessive. So Here in this diagram, we've got the phenotype and the genotype of homozygous dominant, heterozygous dominant, and homozygous recessive homologous chromosomes. Okay, so as long as the dominant allele is there, that plant is gonna be tall. You know, that plant is gonna be tall. Right? So the one on top, the phenotype is tall because the plant is homozygous dominant. The one in the middle has got one allele for tallness and another allele is recessive. So one is dominant, another one is recessive. So one capital letter, another one small letter. So it is heterozygous. Dominant because the dominant allele is there. So the phenotype is also seen as a tall plant. And the last one is homozygous recessive. Both alleles are recessive. Therefore, the phenotype is, you're going to look at the plant and you'll notice that the plant is a short plant. You see? So, very, very important. So that's the concept of phenotype and genotype. What is genotype? Genotype is the composition of the genes in the chromosomes. Genotype. For example, if I write, for example, in this case, TT, that's a genotype. Then I write TT genotype. Then I write TT like this, genotype as well. So these are genotypes, but there are different T's. The first T, both of them are capital letters, which means that that individual is homozygous dominant. That's a genotype. That's a genotype. The one in the middle, one capital letter and another one a small letter. Genotype. Okay? The last one, both of them small letters, lowercase. Genotype. Okay? Don't forget about this. We're going to mention it again. Okay. So we see in this chromosome here, there is a chromosome. In the chromosome, I spoke about loci, right? That's plural. Locus singular. There is a locus for height. You see TT. There's another locus for the color of the seeds. Another locus for the texture of the seeds, and so on. You see. So here we're just mentioning the height. So different loci in the chromosome. Different loci on the chromosome. You see, different loci on the chromosome. I've got 3 loci, 3 different characteristics on the chromosome. Okay? Don't forget that. So, 2 parents crossed. One is tall, another one is short. So, don't forget that Mendel, when he was studying pea plants, he found that there were 22 varieties of pea plants. When these varieties self-pollinated, they were found to be true breeding. So self-pollinating them throughout generations, they were now found to be true breeding, pure breeding, which means that if the plant is tall, now every generation of that plant, the descendants of that plant are also tall, like the parent plant. So we call it true breeding. That's when, if this only happens with homozygous individuals. If they are homozygous dominant for height, so the parent only produces descendants or plants that are also tall. So that plant is a true breeding. So here we've got 2 plants that are true breeding. One is true breeding for tallness, and another one is true breeding for, right, the characteristic of being short. Okay, one is tall, another one is short, right? So when they cross, We've got P1 meaning first parental generation, right? Which means parents simply. F1 meaning first filial coming from sons, descendants, right? F1 means first filial generation. All of them are tall, right? So we spoke about genotype. These are genotypes. Okay. Let's go to this diagram here. The name of this diagram, my friend, is Punnett diagram. Punnett diagram. Punnett. You get what I'm saying? Or Punnett diagram. Well, whatever the pronunciation of the guy. So the guy invented this table. So okay, let me write here. Okay, maybe here. You know, now Punnett diagram. Okay, Punnett diagram. So yeah, so we've got a Punnett diagram here. No, thank you, no. So here's the Punnett diagram. We see the gametes, two plants crossing, one true breeding for tallness, another true breeding for shortness. One is tall, another one is short. So tallness and shortness here. So if they cross, if you cross them, okay, if you cross them, cross-pollinating them, you know what I'm saying? These are plants. All the first filial generation is going to be tall. They are heterozygous. They are tall. Now we can do something. Here. What does that mean? Let's go back to the other slide there. This slide. That means that in this case, we have in terms of genotype, that means that we have this characteristic 25%, okay, this characteristic 50%, okay, and this characteristic 25%, okay. Yeah, so here we are talking about genotype. All right, don't forget. This is the genotype. Okay, the way the genes are organized, the types of genes that they have. We call it what? Genotype. Now, call it genotype. Let's show this thing right now. See, genotype. Okay, 25% of the plants are both T. No, not in that case. Not in that case. In that case, you can see here that all of them are heterozygous. Okay, all of them are what? Heterozygous. But if we take, so let me write it like this. Okay, this is real-time teaching here. Real-time teaching. All of them are heterozygous. So you can just say, I'm gonna write in another color, that in that case they are 100% T, okay, 100% T, just like this. Okay. So that one that I've written now in red is the genotype. Okay, 100% TT. So one T is capital letter, another T is a small letter. That's the genotype. Now, let us write genotype here. Genotype. So, what about the phenotype? What about the phenotype? What about the phenotype? The phenotype is also 100% another color. Okay, 100% if possible. 100% tall plants. 100% tall plants. Tall plants. That's the what? That's the phenotype. Okay? That's the phenotype. Right. And here we said is the genotype. Right. Different colors so you understand my point. Okay. That's okay. You can just leave it like that. Okay. So, in this cross here, the descendants, the first filial generation, all of them are like this: 1, 2, 3, 4 possibilities, each corresponding to 25%. 25 times 4, 100%. They are all T capital letter and T small letter. That's the genotype. And in terms of their characteristic outward appearance, they are all tall. So that's the phenotype. Okay, guys? It's actually here. I hope you guys understood it. But now, let us say that now we are going to cross the first filial generation. Okay? Just to finish the video. So we take the first filial generation and we, okay, undo it, and we cross them. Take the first filial generation and we cross the first filial generation. So they look like capital T and small t there. This is what's happening here. Small t there. No. Okay, T here, and here small t here. Okay, so here we're going to have this T with this T, so two capital T's. This T with this T, it's gonna be like this. Then here, then this side, that T with this T is gonna be like this, and then finally here is gonna be like small t's. Okay, now let us look at it. So in this case we have crossed the descendants that are heterozygous, right? When we cross them, what we see is that some are homozygous dominant and some are heterozygous and others are homozygous recessive. So we have 25% homozygous dominant, 50% heterozygous, and 25% homozygous recessive. Why? Because only one block we've got two T's with capital letters In another one block, only 2 T's with small letters. So 25 and 25. And then I've got 2 blocks where I've got 1 T small letter and another T capital letter. First is the capital letter and the second one is small letter. So there are 2 blocks, so the 50%. So this would be the genotype. Alright, that would be the genotype, because I'm about to finish. That would be the genotype. So what about the phenotype in that case? Okay, what about the phenotype in this case here? Let us see if we can just do that. Phenotype. Okay, in this case. So in this case, this is the genotype I told you. This is genotype. I'm gonna write G. Okay. Genotype. Genotype. Okay. Okay. Genotype. Now, what about the phenotype? The phenotype is going to be 75% tall and 25% of them are short. Okay, so that will be the phenotype. The phenotype. All right. So that's it. So here you've got 25, 50, and 25 genotype, and phenotype now should be separated. Okay, 75% tall and 25% only short plants. Okay, guys, that one was for this new table here. Right. Okay, guys, thank you. Enjoy your day.